When El Salvador stopped being the murder capital of the world because of Bukele, the president, Ecuador became the murder capital of the world. In 2023, there were over 4,000 murders, double the number from 2022. And they had enough in Ecuador. They looked at what El Salvador did, and they elected a 36-year-old named Daniel Noboa. Daniel Noboa's father was an exceedingly wealthy businessman who tried to run for president and was rejected. Center-left, somewhat populist. They had an election this past year, and there was an anti-corruption candidate running, and the gangs assassinated him. So people rallied to Noboa. Now, Noboa has a problem. A lot of the drug cartels in South America are flowing their drugs out of the Amazon through to Ecuador. Ecuador is bordered by Peru and by Colombia. And in southern Colombia, in the Andes region and down into the valley, and in Peru, in the northern regions of Peru, you got a lot of drug cartels making cocaine and other things, and they route it through Ecuador. And the gangs have gotten out of control in Ecuador. There's a major gang leader in Ecuador who has been in prison, and he has disappeared. Adolfo Macias, the leader of the Los Chaneros criminal gang. He's in prison for a 34-year sentence. He's gone. They think he's escaped. And now there's a massive gang war in Ecuador. All hell's broken loose. And the reason is because Noboa, the president, is doing what Bukele did. And all the gangs have seen how effective it was with Bukele. They're fighting back hard. So what Noboa wants to do is he wants to build supermax prisons. The prisons in Ecuador are not great. They're underfunded. They're not in good shape. They're pretty easy to escape from. And the drug cartels have taken over the prisons. If you're a prison guard, you're very likely to be murdered in Ecuador. So no one wants to be a prison guard. They've got to build new, better prisons. He also wants to arm the police with military precision weapons that the United States has now agreed to supply. And he also wants the voters to vote. See, Ecuador doesn't extradite its citizens to other countries, and it's part of the Constitution, and so he's putting it up for a vote so that they can get rid of their gang lords and drug lords and force them into other countries. And the criminal gang elements are having enough. So yesterday, there was a TV station, a public television station, that was stormed by gang members. They came in with guns and machetes, and they held everybody hostage. They've all now been arrested. Now, what's so notable here is that, again, like Bukele in El Salvador, in Ecuador, Noboa is essentially suspending and curtailing a lot of civil rights that you and I would say are bad things we shouldn't do. But he's out of options. He doesn't know how else to operate to quickly contain the situation. Essentially, Ecuador is in a civil war situation where it's drug lords, cartels, and gang members fighting the military and the police. He's trying to get clamped down. You fix the situation, you resolve the situation, then you can say, okay, consider Abraham Lincoln in the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus. The Constitution says only Congress can do this. The Supreme Court told Abraham Lincoln, you're not the one allowed to suspend habeas corpus. And Lincoln says, okay, come enforce it yourselves. He was desperate in the Civil War. He did things he shouldn't have done, constitutionally shouldn't have been able to do. He acted in many ways like a dictator to preserve the Union. And now all these people who lionize Abraham Lincoln, Western elites, are looking at Noboa and Bukele saying, y'all can't do this. This violates the Western world order. They're doing it, and it's saving lives. And here's the problem for the United States. You know one of the biggest trading partners in Ecuador? China. If the United States isn't willing to step in and help, China will. And if China begins making loans to Ecuador, you know what China's going to do? They're going to make contingent on repayment of the loans, giving them land for military operations. So Joe Biden can either hold his head high and say, we refuse to help these countries that are doing things that we don't like when it comes to the rights of the people, and let China get a foothold in South America militarily, or Joe Biden can suck it up and help Ecuador, because Ecuador has come to us first for military and police assistance. Ecuador has come to us first, not China. So Joe Biden's going to have to decide, does he want to give China a foothold in South America militarily, or does he want to suck up his pride and say, you know what, we're going to help these guys fight the gangs? And here's the irony here. If Joe Biden is willing to help, he could also reduce the flow of people coming across the southern border. But Biden idolizes Jimmy Carter, the craziest thing. Of all the presidents to idolize, why one of the worst? But Biden does. And he loved that Jimmy Carter tied American foreign policy to human rights. And he could be opening the door to China by doing that. It's the most demented thing. But when the guy's got dementia, what do you expect? Noboa in Ecuador needs our support. And members of Congress on a bipartisan coalition want to actually help him. He is trying to shut down these gangs that are running rampant in Ecuador, and hopefully we can help him. It's a big deal. These South American and Central American countries, what's notable is they've gotten so fed up with the political establishments that allowed this to fester, they're electing 30 and 40-year-olds who've had enough, who are angry about it, and are willing to just round up everybody and throw them in jail. American cities could probably learn something from these people.